The sun blazed mercilessly over Lagos, casting long shadows across the bustling streets. Wura sat on a makeshift stool in the corner of the uncompleted building she called home. The dusty walls, unfinished concrete, and skeletal roof offered little comfort. At just 25 years old, she had spent the last decade fending for herself after losing her parents in a tragic car accident when she was only 15. The streets of Lagos were unkind, but Wura's spirit remained resilient. That morning, hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she ignored it. Her daily routine consisted of wandering through the city, hoping for odd jobs or small errands to make enough money for a meal. As she gazed at the road from her vantage point, her thoughts were interrupted by the sleek hum of a luxury SUV pulling up nearby. A woman, elegantly dressed in a navy blue suit, stepped out of the car. She looked every bit the powerful figure, confident and graceful, with a phone pressed to her ear and a bottle of water in hand. She strode toward the gate of a tall, gleaming building nearby. Wura watched, intrigued, as the woman walked. Something unexpected happened. A bundle of dollar bills slipped from her bag and landed on the ground. The woman, engrossed in her call, didn't notice. Wura's eyes widened. She stood frozen for a moment, staring at the small fortune lying just a few feet away. Her heart pounded. Without hesitation, she darted forward, scooping up the money. "Madam! Madam!" she called, her voice cracking from disuse, but the woman was already at the gate, which clicked shut behind her as she entered. Wura ran to the gate, clutching the money tightly. "Please, I need to see the madam," she told the gateman. The gateman eyed her skeptically. Her tattered clothes and dusty appearance painted a clear picture of her struggles. "Go away," he said dismissively. "She doesn't have time for beggars." "I'm not begging," Wura protested. "She dropped this money, and I want to return it." The gateman snorted. "You, returning money? Go before I call the police." Wura stepped aside but refused to leave. She sat down on the pavement near the gate, determined to wait. Hours passed. The scorching sun gave way to a cooler evening breeze, but Wura remained steadfast. She wouldn't leave without returning the money. Inside the building, the woman, Mrs. Agnes Adamy, the CEO of the company, glanced at the security cameras out of habit. Her eyes narrowed when she spotted Wura sitting by the gate. "Who's that girl?" she asked her assistant. The assistant shrugged. "Don't know, Ma. She's been there for hours." Curious, Mrs. Agnes called the gateman. "Why is that girl at the gate?" "She says she wants to see you, Ma, but she looks like one of those street beggars," he replied dismissively. "Bring her to my office immediately," Mrs. Agnes ordered. Minutes later, Wura was ushered into the lavish office. She felt out of place among the polished furniture and soft carpet. Mrs. Agnes, seated behind a large desk, studied her intently. "How can I help you?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Wura took a deep breath. "Ma, earlier today, when you got out of your car, a bundle of money fell from your bag. I tried to call you, but you didn't hear me. I told the gateman, but he didn't let me in. I've been waiting all day to return it to you." She placed the bundle of dollars on the desk. Mrs. Agnes stared, stunned by the young woman's honesty. "You've been here all day just to return this?" "Yes, Ma," Wura replied softly. The CEO smiled warmly. "Thank you, my dear. This money is for an important project. I can't imagine what would have happened if I lost it." She picked a note from the bundle and held it out to Wura. "Take this as a token of my appreciation." Wura shook her head. "No, Ma. Kindness isn't meant to be paid for." Mrs. Agnes was taken aback. "What do you do for a living?" "Nothing, Ma," Wura admitted, "but if I had the opportunity, I'd love to work and learn to use a computer." "No, Ma, but I'm a fast learner," Wura added. Mrs. Agnes smiled. "Then you'll start tomorrow." I'll have someone teach you. By the way, I'm Mrs. Agnes. What's your name? Wura, Ma. I'll see you tomorrow. For the first time in years, Wura felt a spark of hope as she left the office. The next morning, Wura arrived at the towering building promptly at 8 a.m., her heart pounding with nervous excitement. She wore the best outfit she could muster, a clean but faded blouse and a skirt that had seen better days. Her feet, clad in well-worn sandals, carried her hesitantly toward the reception desk. "Good morning," she greeted the receptionist shyly. The receptionist, a young woman with a sleek bob haircut, looked her over and raised an eyebrow. "Are you the new hire Mrs. Agnes mentioned?" "Yes, Ma. My name is Wura." The receptionist motioned toward a young woman standing nearby. "This is Blessing. She'll be training you on the basics of computer operations and helping you settle into your duties." Wura turned to Blessing, a sharply dressed woman whose expression was anything but welcoming. "Follow me," Blessing said curtly, walking briskly toward a small workstation at the corner of the office. Wura hurried after her, trying not to stumble. As she settled into the desk, Blessing began pointing out the computer's components in rapid-fire explanations, her tone clipped. "This is the keyboard. That's the monitor. This is the CPU. Got it?" Wura nodded eagerly, though she barely had time to process the information. "I have some errands to run," Blessing continued. "You'll just sit here and figure things out. Don't touch anything unless you're sure." With that, Blessing left, leaving Wura alone and overwhelmed. She stared at the screen, her hands hovering uncertainly over the keyboard. Determined to make the most of the opportunity, she began experimenting, clicking on icons and attempting to type. Over the next few days, Blessing's so-called training was little more than thinly veiled disdain. She frequently sent Wura on errands, fetching coffee, buying office supplies, and running personal tasks that had nothing to do with work. Wura, ever patient and eager to prove herself, complied without complaint. One afternoon, Mrs. Agnes noticed Wura's worn-out shoes as she walked past her desk. "Wura," she called kindly. "Yes, Ma," Wura replied, standing quickly. "Come with me." Mrs. Agnes led her to her private office, where she handed Wura a shopping bag filled with neatly folded clothes. "These are for you," she said kindly. "I noticed you might need them." Wura's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Ma. I don't know how to repay you." "You're doing just fine, Wura," Mrs. Agnes replied with a smile. As Blessing stood nearby, her face soured with jealousy. When Mrs. Agnes asked Wura, "How is your computer training going?" Wura hesitated before replying, "It's fine, Ma." But Mrs. Agnes could sense something was wrong. The next day, she handed Wura a typed document and asked her to replicate it on the computer. Wura admitted, "Ma, I'm sorry, but I don't know how to type yet. Blessing hasn't been teaching me." Furious, Mrs. Agnes summoned Blessing to her office. "Why haven't you been training Wura as I instructed?" she demanded. Blessing stammered, I was busy." "No excuses," Mrs. Agnes snapped, dismissing her. The next day, Mrs. Agnes hired a professional instructor to train Wura. Determined to succeed, Wura stayed late every night, practicing and absorbing everything she was taught. But one evening, as Wura left the office, Mrs. Agnes decided to follow her discreetly. When she saw Wura enter the uncompleted building she called home, her heart broke. "Wura," she called softly from behind. Startled, Wura turned. "Ma, what are you doing here? How are you living here?" Mrs. Agnes asked gently. Wura hesitated, then burst into tears. "This is all I have, Ma. I'm saving up to rent a better place." Mrs. Agnes touched her shoulder. "You can't stay here anymore. Come with me." Though reluctant, Wura followed. That night, her life began to change in ways she could never have imagined. Wura sat quietly in the passenger seat of Mrs. Agnes's luxurious SUV, her hands folded nervously in her lap. The events of the evening had left her overwhelmed. She couldn't believe this was happening. Her boss had found out where she lived and was now offering her a place to stay. As the car pulled up to a grand mansion, Wura's eyes widened. The sprawling home stood tall with its elegant white walls, manicured gardens, and a driveway lined with decorative lights. For a moment, she hesitated to get out of the car, unsure if she belonged in a place so beautiful. "Come on, Wura," Mrs. Agnes said gently, stepping out and gesturing for her to follow. The inside of the mansion was even more breathtaking. Polished marble floors reflected the glow of chandeliers, and the air smelled faintly of fresh flowers. Wura had never seen such luxury in her life. "Welcome to your new home," Mrs. Agnes said with a warm smile. "Ma, I can't, this is too much," Wura stammered. "Nonsense," Mrs. Agnes replied. "I've lived alone in this house for years. It's time for it to feel alive again." As Wura looked around, she noticed a twinge of sadness in her boss's eyes. "Why do you live alone, Ma?" she asked tentatively. Mrs. Agnes's voice softened. "My husband and children died in a car accident many years ago. Since then, I've focused on my work and lived alone." Wura felt a pang of sorrow. "I'm so sorry, Ma," she whispered. Mrs. Agnes smiled faintly. "Thank you, my dear, but let's not dwell on the past. Let me show you to your room." Wura followed her upstairs to a cozy room with a comfortable bed, soft curtains, and a small desk. It was simple compared to the rest of the house but still far beyond anything Wura had ever known. "You'll stay here," Mrs. Agnes said. "And don't worry about anything. I'll make sure you have what you need." Wura could barely find the words to express her gratitude. "Thank you, Ma. I'll work harder than ever to prove I deserve this." The following weeks brought a whirlwind of changes. Wura settled into her new routine with determination. Under the guidance of the professional instructor hired by Mrs. Agnes, she quickly mastered the basics of computer operations. Every evening after work, she would stay late at the office, practicing her typing and familiarizing herself with new software. Mrs. Agnes noticed Wura's dedication and was impressed. "You're doing well," she told her one day, "but remember to rest sometimes." However, not everyone was pleased with Wura's progress. Blessing, who had been relegated to less significant tasks, watched Wura rise with growing resentment. One evening, as Wura passed by her desk, Blessing muttered under her breath, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Wura paused but decided not to engage. She had more important things to focus on. Little did she know, Blessing's jealousy would soon lead to trouble that could threaten everything Wura had worked so hard to achieve. Wura had settled into her new life and was thriving under Mrs. Agnes's mentorship. Her work ethic was unmatched, and she quickly became an indispensable part of the team. Her humility and dedication caught the attention of many in the office, but not everyone was impressed. Blessing's resentment toward Wura had grown into a simmering rage. Watching Wura rise from an unassuming girl to someone respected by Mrs. Agnes was a bitter pill for her to swallow. Her envy only deepened when Wura was promoted to the position of Mrs. Agnes's personal assistant. One morning, as Wura arrived at the office, she noticed Blessing watching her from across the room. There was something unsettling about her expression, but Wura brushed it off. She had learned to ignore Blessing's petty comments and cold stares. That day, Mrs. Agnes handed Wura an important task. "Wura, I need you to coordinate with one of our major clients. This project is crucial, and I trust you to handle it," she said. "Yes, Ma. I won't disappoint you," Wura replied, her voice steady with determination. Blessing overheard the conversation, and an idea began to form in her mind. Later that afternoon, she approached Wura's desk with a fake smile plastered on her face. "Wura, can I borrow your phone? My battery is dead, and I need to make an urgent call," Blessing said sweetly. Wura hesitated but handed over her phone. "Sure, please don't take too long." Blessing disappeared into a quiet corner of the office and quickly dialed one of the company's clients, pretending to be Wura. She requested that a significant sum of money be transferred to an account she had secretly set up. By the time the transfer was complete, Blessing returned Wura's phone with a casual "thanks" before returning to her desk. The next day, Wura was stunned when a notification popped up on her phone, showing a large sum of money deposited into her account. She stared at it in disbelief, her mind racing. Before she could process what had happened, Mrs. Agnes called her into the office. "Wura, I need an explanation," Mrs. Agnes said sternly, holding up a document showing the transfer. "One of our clients claims you requested this money." Wura's heart sank. "Ma, I don't understand." "I didn't." Before she could finish, Blessing burst into the office. "Madam, I overheard Wura talking to the client. She told them to send the money to her account." Wura turned to Blessing in shock. "That's not true. I don't know anything about this." Mrs. Agnes's face hardened. "Wura, this is a serious matter. Until we sort this out, you're fired from your duties." Devastated, Wura packed her belongings and left the office in tears. She had no way to prove her innocence. Little did she know, this setback was only the beginning of her journey to reclaim her name and future. The days after Wura's suspension were some of the hardest she had ever faced. Sitting alone in her small rented shop, she replayed the events in her mind. The betrayal by Blessing, the look of disappointment on Mrs. Agnes's face, and her inability to prove her innocence weighed heavily on her. She was filled with despair but determined not to give up. She used the little savings she had to start a small hairdressing and spa business, skills she had learned before working at the company. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, and she poured her heart into it. Word of her talent spread quickly in the neighborhood, and soon she began attracting loyal clients. Despite her growing success, Wura couldn't forget Mrs. Agnes or the kindness she had shown. She often thought about going back to explain her side of the story but decided against it. "She wouldn't believe me," Wura whispered to herself. Meanwhile, back at the company, things were falling apart. Mrs. Agnes had begun noticing irregularities in the accounts. Projects were delayed, funds were unaccounted for, and key clients had started pulling away. She couldn't ignore the signs any longer. One evening, Mrs. Agnes sat in her office, reviewing files. Her instincts told her to revisit the incident with Wura. She opened the CCTV footage from the day the suspicious transaction occurred and began to watch closely. Her eyes widened as she saw Blessing using Wura's phone in the corner of the office. "A blessing," Mrs. Agnes muttered under her breath, her hands tightening into fists. She realized she had made a grave mistake in trusting the wrong person. The next morning, Mrs. Agnes summoned Blessing to her office. "Blessing, I need an explanation for these discrepancies," she said, her tone sharp. Blessing tried to deflect. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Maybe Wura." "Don't you dare." Mrs. Agnes interrupted. "I've seen the CCTV footage. You used Wura's phone to make that call. You're the one who defrauded this company." Blessing's face turned pale, and she stammered, I didn't mean to." "I trusted you," Mrs. Agnes said coldly. "You've not only betrayed this company but also ruined an innocent girl's life. Pack your things and leave immediately. And trust me, I'll make sure the authorities hear about this." As Blessing was escorted out, Mrs. Agnes sat back in her chair, her thoughts racing. She felt a deep pang of guilt for how she had treated Wura. Without wasting another moment, she instructed her driver to take her to Wura's neighborhood. When Mrs. Agnes arrived at the shop, she was struck by how well Wura had turned her life around. Inside, Wura was tending to a client when she heard a familiar voice. "Wura," Mrs. Agnes said softly. Wura turned, her eyes widening in shock. "Ma?" "I'm here to apologize," Mrs. Agnes said, tears glistening in her eyes. "I was wrong about you, and I hope you can forgive me." Wura stared at Mrs. Agnes, unsure of what to say. The woman who had once thrown her out of the company was now standing before her, remorse written all over her face. Wura put down her comb and excused herself from the client she was attending to. "Ma," Wura began, her voice trembling, "why are you here?" Mrs. Agnes stepped closer, tears pooling in her eyes. "I came to say I'm sorry, Wura. I wronged you. I should have listened when you tried to explain yourself. Instead, I let my anger cloud my judgment, and I failed you." Wura's heart softened as she listened, but she couldn't ignore the pain of what had happened. "Ma, do you know what that did to me? I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. I had to start from scratch," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know, my dear, and I'll never forgive myself for putting you through that," Mrs. Agnes said. "I discovered the truth. Blessing was behind everything. She used your phone to commit fraud and framed you. I've had her fired and reported her to the authorities." Wura took a deep breath, the weight of her emotions finally lifting. "Thank you for telling me, Ma, but I've built something for myself now. I'm no longer the girl who depends on others. This shop is my pride, and I've worked hard for it." Mrs. Agnes smiled, a mixture of pride and regret on her face. "I can see that, Wura. You've grown into a remarkable young woman. But I can't let my mistake end here. I want to make amends. Come back to the company. I need someone like you by my side, someone I can trust." Wura hesitated. The company had been a place of pain and betrayal for her, but it was Politici where she had discovered her strength and resilience. "Ma, I appreciate the offer, but this shop is my home now. It's my dream." Mrs. Agnes nodded, understanding Wura's decision. "Then let me support your dream. I'll invest in your business and help you expand. You deserve it." Wura's eyes widened. "Ma, I can't accept that. I don't want charity." "It's not charity," Mrs. Agnes said firmly. "It's my way of righting a wrong. Please, let me do this for you." After a long pause, Wura finally nodded. "Thank you, Ma. I'll accept your help, but only as a partner. I want to keep earning my success." Mrs. Agnes smiled warmly. "Deal." Months later, Wura's business had transformed into a thriving enterprise with multiple branches across Lagos. She and Mrs. Agnes worked together, combining their skills to build something extraordinary. One sunny afternoon, as they sat in Wura's flagship store, Mrs. Agnes turned to her. "You know, Wura, you've become like a daughter to me." "And you've been like a mother to me," Wura replied, smiling. Their bond, born from hardship and forgiveness, was unbreakable, a testament to the power of resilience, trust, and second chances. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.